the Hollywood Unapologetic Podcast with Orlando Delbert, Filmmaking Essentials. Today, we're jumping right into something pretty exciting happening in filmmaking. It's this idea of a new Hollywood generation.
Yeah.
Basically, entrepreneurial filmmakers who are really shaking things up.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we're watching this democratization of filmmaking happen in real time. It's quite a shift.
Totally. And we've got some great material to unpack this stuff, from Reddit discussions on zero-budget filmmaking, insights from the book Rise of the Film Entrepreneur, and even technical details from the VES Handbook of Virtual Production.
A real mix.
Right. So our goal here is to get into the specifics, this whole movement, the tech involved, these new workflows, both physical and virtual.
And maybe peek into the future a bit, see where this is all heading for indie creators.
Exactly. We know you want the key info without getting swamped, so we've boiled it down. Expect some surprising bits and solid insights. Okay, let's get started.
So this term film entrepreneur really jumps out, doesn't it? It's highlighted in that Rise of the Film Entrepreneur book. And it's not just your classic indie filmmaker who's, purely focused on the art.
Right, it's different.
Yeah, this is someone who actually gets the business side too, like marketing, distribution, even product development around the film itself. It's a whole mindset shift.
It really is. Because, let's be honest, the traditional path for indie film, it's brutal. The book mentions some pretty stark numbers.
Oh yeah, something like, 98% of indie films fail to get distribution?
That's the figure, yeah. And even fewer actually make their money back.
Mm-hmm.
The odds are just incredibly tough.
They really are. And
Yeah.
that's exactly why this entrepreneurial approach is, almost necessary now. These film entrepreneurs, they don't have that Hollywood studio machine behind them, No massive budgets, no built-in marketing muscle, no guaranteed distribution deals.
So they have to play a different game.
Completely. They've got to be smarter, hustle harder, think outside the box. It's about creating their own opportunities, really.
So what does that look like in practice? What are the skills, the approaches these film entrepreneurs are using?
Well, the book points to a few key things. They need to be good at stuff like growth hacking, viral marketing, finding clever ways to build buzz without a huge budget.
Okay, so getting creative with promotion.
Definitely. And building an audience directly, maybe through crowdfunding or social media engagement, that connection is vital. Plus, thinking about other ways to make money beyond just selling the film alternative revenue streams.
Like merch or maybe related content.
Could be anything, yeah. And crucially, they need to be super adaptable, always ready to jump on new technologies as they come along.
The book also mentioned a secret sauce. What's that about?
The secret sauce. According to the book, it boils down to creating massive value, but for a very specific niche audience.
So finding your tribe and really serving them.
Exactly. That value might just be the film itself if it hits that niche perfectly. Or it could be other things, products, services, experiences that spin off from the film. That ability to connect deeply and offer more is key.
It really changes how you think about what a film project can even be, doesn't it?
It does.
Now, you mentioned tech being crucial. This digital revolution, it feels like the bedrock for a lot of this.
Yeah.
How has it powered this indie entrepreneurial wave?
Oh, it's been absolutely fundamental. The digital tools have just become so much more accessible, so much more affordable. Think about cameras. Hybrid cameras now offer incredible quality professional features at prices that were unthinkable not long ago. Things like the Sony A9 III, the Fujifilm GFX100 II, Nikon Z8, even the Panasonic S5 i9X, or the Blackmagic 6K camera.
Yeah, the gear has gotten amazing. And wasn't there that Apple event shot entirely on an iPhone 15 Pro?
Exactly. Even high-end smartphones are now viable production tools for certain projects. It really lowers that initial barrier to just making something.
It truly democratizes the creation part.
Yeah.
But what about getting it seen? You still need distribution?
True. And that's where online platforms have really stepped in. Think Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and they've become huge players not just in watching content, but in actually producing and distributing independent work too. They offer pathways for films, especially lower budget, unique stories, to find viewers globally.
Which is great. But does that create its own problem? Like, everyone can make something now, so how do you stand out?
That's the flip side, definitely. The barrier to entry is lower, yes, but the marketplace is incredibly crowded. There's just so much content available.
So it's easier to make, maybe easier to distribute in some ways, but harder to get noticed.
Precisely. Which brings us back to that film entrepreneur mindset, right? You need more than just a good film. You need a strategy to cut through all that noise.
Makes sense. Okay, so speaking of starting out, maybe without much noise or budget, we looked at that Reddit thread about zero-budget filmmaking. What's the core advice there for absolute beginners?
A lot of it is really practical, down-to-earth stuff. First off, embrace the limitations. Don't see having no money or only one location as a negative.
Turn it into a creative challenge.
Exactly. Make it a feature. Shoot on your phone, set it all in one room, use just a couple of actors you know. The key is to start small, but more importantly, finish the project.
Ah, the finishing part. That seems crucial.
It is. It's about getting that experience, learning the whole process, and like one person on Reddit said, stacking wins, building confidence in a small body of work.
I like that. Stacking wins.
Yeah.
There was also that analogy about 100 shitty paintings. What's the idea there?
Yeah. That's about not getting paralyzed by perfectionism right out of the gate. You need to just make things. Your first few attempts might not be masterpieces. They may be your shitty paintings, but you learn so much by actually doing the work and completing it. That's how you improve.
So focus on the making, not just the dreaming. For these zero-budget projects, what are some concrete steps?
Okay, so pre-production is still king, even with no money. Plan meticulously. Figure out exactly what resources you do have, time, locations, people, and maximize them.
Be realistic but organized.
Totally. And be ready to adapt when things inevitably go wrong during the shoot. And again, finish it. Find ways to collaborate, maybe connect with people online or locally who are also starting out.
What about things like permits? The thread mentioned those hidden costs.
Good point. Yeah, things like permits or insurance can trip you up. The advice there was generally to keep your initial crew incredibly small to minimize those kinds of logistical hurdles and costs.
Makes sense. Now, that Reddit discussion also got into this debate. Should you bootstrap it all yourself or try and scrape together some money to hire maybe one or two experienced people?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The reality is finding experienced crew who work for cheap or free, especially outside major cities, is really hard.
So bootstrapping might limit the technical quality, but raising even a little money adds pressure and complexity.
That's the trade-off. There's no single right answer. It depends on the project and the filmmaker. But the thread really stressed the importance of continuous learning. If you are bootstrapping, learn about sound, learn about lighting, improve your writing. That way you can elevate the production value yourself, even without fancy gear or a big crew.
And there was a smart tip about planning around what you have access to, right?
Yeah, it was clever. Instead of writing a script and then trying to find locations and actors, maybe see what locations, actors, or even gear you can get easily and then build a story around that. It flips the process to manage costs from the start.
Very practical. Okay, let's shift gears a bit towards some of the more advanced tech that's becoming relevant here. Virtual production, or VP. What exactly are we talking about?
Right, so the VES handbook defines it pretty clearly. It's essentially using real-time digital tech to either enhance or sometimes completely replace traditional visual effects workflows during filming.
Okay, so integrating digital elements much earlier in the process.
Exactly. And it's a spectrum. It could be as simple as like replacing a green screen live on set monitors, or it could be as complex as using massive LED walls to create entire digital environments that the actors are actually performing within.
Those LED walls seem like a really big deal in VP. We saw that image of the motorcycle being lit by them. What's the advantage there?
Oh, huge advantages. For one, everyone on set, actors, director, DP, sees the virtual environment together. It creates a shared space, which helps performance and collaboration.
So it feels more real on set.
Totally. And technically, the light from the LED walls actually illuminates the real actors and props, creating incredibly realistic interactive lighting. Plus, you avoid all the hassles of green screen spill and tricky keying in post-production.
Makes sense. The handbook mentioned something called in-camera green screen replacement that came before the big LED walls.
Yeah, that was kind of a stepping stone. Think films like The Jungle Book. They would track the camera's position and lens information, feed that into a game engine, and the engine would render the virtual background in real time, showing it on monitors. So while the actors were still in front of a green screen, the crew could see a rough version of the final composite right there on set.
Gotcha. And it sounds like VP is moving beyond just backgrounds now. The handbook talks about AR, MR, motion capture.
Yeah, it's getting really integrated. Augmented reality and mixed reality elements can be layered onto the set. You can use full body and facial motion capture to drive digital characters in real time right alongside the live actors.
Wow. Like that image of someone interacting with a virtual character.
Exactly like that. It opens up amazing creative possibilities.
Okay, and then there's the term LED volume.
Yeah.
How's that different from just an LED wall?
So an LED volume is more than just the screen. It combines the LED wall backdrop, sometimes ceiling panels too, with a powerful game engine. The crucial part is that the engine renders the virtual scene from the perspective of the main camera, which is being tracked in real time.
Ah, so as the camera moves, the background perspective changes correctly.
Precisely. That creates the illusion of real depth and parallax. It makes the virtual background feel truly three-dimensional through the camera lens, which is key to selling the effect.
This sounds incredibly complex to set up and run. What's the workflow like?
It is complex. The VES handbook breaks it down. Pre-production becomes even more critical. You're doing virtual scouting, detailed previs, tech-vis to plan camera moves and lens choices, even stunt-vis using game physics to plan action sequences safely.
So a ton of digital planning up front.
A ton. Then, during production, you're combining the physical set pieces and actors with the real-time virtual elements on the volume. The magic happens live. Post-production still exists, of course, but it often becomes more about refining and cleaning up shots rather than creating entire worlds from scratch after the fact.
What kind of software powers all this?
Game engines are central. Unreal Engine and Unity are the big ones mentioned in the handbook. Then you have specialized tools like Touch Designer or Notch for real-time effects and control.
And you obviously need all the digital assets for these virtual worlds.
Absolutely. That involves 3D modeling, using photogrammetry to capture real-world textures, preparing 2D background plates. The handbook even mentions volumetric capture for creating digital humans, meta-humans, for example.
It sounds like a whole new set of skills and roles needed on set.
Definitely. They talk about the brain bar, which is like the central hub controlling the volume. You've got engine operators, real-time VFX artists tweaking things live, asset managers. It's a very tech-heavy operation.
Okay, so the tech side is fascinating, potentially democratizing in some ways.
Yeah.
But we still need to talk about money. Financing is always the big hurdle, right?
Always. Technology might lower some production costs, but getting the actual funding, that's still the name of the game. Rapbook's guide on film financing lays out the landscape pretty well.
And it's rarely simple, is it? What are the main avenues?
Well, the guide covers the traditional routes. You've got cash flowing from a studio, which is super rare for indies. More common are things like negative pickup deals, pre-sales to distributors. Then there's equity investment, selling shares in the film. Debt financing, like taking out loans against pre-sales or filling funding gaps. And soft money is huge.
Soft money being?
Things like tax credits and incentives from governments, grants, crowdfunding, maybe product placement deals, getting services or gear donated, that kind of stuff.
And the key takeaway seems to be that you usually need a mix of these, right? It's not just one source.
Almost never. It's usually a patchwork quilt of different financing types. You have to balance equity, debt, soft money. It's complex.
And this is where being a film entrepreneur probably helps again. Thinking creatively about funding.
I'd say so. They might be more open to innovative models, maybe leveraging that niche audience they've built, or looking at direct-to-consumer distribution strategies as part of the financing plan itself.
Okay, distribution. We touched on platforms earlier. That Reddit thread about the indie doc brought up this choice. Use your own website, like with Vimeo on demand, versus a platform like filmhub.com. What's the thinking there?
Yeah, it's a classic control versus reach debate. Going direct on your own site gives you full control and potentially a much bigger slice of the revenue per sale.
But you have to do all the work.
All the marketing, driving traffic, handling payments, it's a lot. Platforms like FilmHub, they handle the distribution to lots of different streaming services for you. It's less work, wider potential reach.
But they take a cut. FilmHub takes 20%, the user said.
Right, that's the trade-off. Less effort, potentially broader exposure, but less revenue per transaction. The consensus on Reddit seemed to be maybe doing both.
How would that work?
Maybe start with your own site for your core fans, get the higher margin there. Then later, put it on FilmHub or similar platforms to reach audiences who wouldn't find your site directly.
And new platforms are popping up too, right? Like Mametu mentioned in that thread, focusing specifically on indies.
Exactly. The distribution landscape is constantly shifting, offering new options for these entrepreneurial filmmakers.
So when we look at the big picture, this new Hollywood generation,
Yeah.
what's the overall trajectory? Where is this headed?
I think the potential is really there for a continued democratization of filmmaking. You've got more accessible tools, these powerful virtual production techniques becoming more common, and more diverse ways to get your film funded and distributed. It really could lead to more varied voices and stories getting out there.
But success seems tied to that entrepreneurial spirit, doesn't it? It's not just about making the film anymore.
Not at all. The filmmakers who thrive in this new landscape seem to be the ones who, yes, have a strong creative vision, but also know how to build that audience, navigate the business side, adapt to the tech. The true filmtrepreneurs.
And the tech keeps evolving too. What else is on the horizon?
Well, the VES handbook mentions some really futuristic stuff, things like light field displays, which could make virtual production even more immersive, maybe getting beyond flat screens. High-resolution depth sensing could improve how real and virtual elements interact. And we're seeing a shift in roles, like VFX artists becoming way more involved throughout the whole production process, not just tacked on at the end because of all this real-time capability.
Fascinating. So to wrap things up, we really explored this rise of the new Hollywood generation. It's about filmmakers acting like entrepreneurs, using accessible tech, embracing new workflows like virtual production, and finding creative ways to fund and distribute their work.
Yeah, it signifies this ongoing democratization, which is exciting and empowers more creators. But as we've seen, it demands more than just artistry. It requires that strategic, business-savvy, adaptable filmtrepreneur approach.
Which leads us to the pretty interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. How is this blend of technology and entrepreneurial thinking going to keep changing storytelling itself? What kinds of new opportunities might open up for creators who are willing to carve out their own path in this evolving landscape?
Yeah, it's something to really mull over, whether you're someone who wants to make films or just someone who loves watching them. The whole game is changing.
Definitely food for thought. If you want to dig deeper into any of this, check out the resources we mentioned, Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, the VES Handbook, or just explore some of those online filmmaker communities.
Right.
Thanks for joining us. You can find more insights on navigating the entertainment industry and achieving success in Orlando Delbert's work, including his book, Pollyanna's Tear-Soaked Battlefields of Hollywood, a survival guide against the cynicism and the hypocritical, and of course, the Hollywood Unapologetic platform. And always remember, you are the key to your own success. You are the new Hollywood generation.
Be informed, be prepared, and most importantly, be great.
That's it. Be great. Good luck out there.
See you next time.